The very first person I want to discuss on this channel is a man who was 24 years my senior, and he was married. Let's talk about it.
Stitching and bitching about plaything and fiction. He was a bore, he was a thrill. Let's live this and chill.
I am knitting at a spot right down the street from our condo in front of this beautiful ocean view. And this is where I'm going to tell my story about Carlos. The stitch that I'm doing is a beautiful twisted stitch. I haven't decided what to make from it yet. This is just a test swatch, but give me some ideas. What should I make with this beautiful ombre stitch? Do you see a scarf being made with this, a full sweater, a table runner? I don't know. Give me some ideas. What would you make with this stitch? And do you want me to teach you how to make this knit stitch? Let me know in the comments. Give me your ideas and your thoughts about what I'm making today. I am more than happy to do a separate video tutorial on how to do this stitch. My first story is not a dating situation or not a bad date, but a relationship that I was in the 2000s. I always knew that I wanted to be a fashion designer. I always knew that I wanted to start my own business in the fashion industry. After graduating high school, I immediately wanted to go to fashion school, but my father didn't think that was such a good idea. He didn't think that there was a realistic career in the fashion industry, and he advised me to go a safer route and study at a university in our local town in Virginia. So I did. I got my first degree in business management, always with the idea of starting my own business in fashion. So instead of going directly to fashion school in New York, which I wanted, I studied business at a university in Virginia. And while I was studying business management full-time, I was working full-time as well. I had a job at a brokerage firm, and what I would do is go to work during the day, regular 9 to 5 hours, and take my classes at night. This was in the mid-2000s, so this is before online classes were really a thing. I would actually go to work during the day and then immediately after work drive down to my university and attend courses at night. So that's what I did for about 4.5 years. It was during this experience at work where I met the very first subject, Carlos. I met Carlos at my job at this brokerage firm. We didn't meet while working on the same shift or working on the same team necessarily. We actually got acquainted at a work lunch. And I saw this man staring at me. Now, keep in mind, I am around 21 or 22 at the time. So I'm in university and I'm working. I'm in my early 20s. And I noticed this man, he had big eyes, just staring at me from across the table. And to describe Carlos, He is Latino, bald, big eyes, a very big smile. So that's the phenotype that I'll give you for Carlos. And I didn't think anything of it at first. Like, why is this man just staring at me from across the table? And he kept smiling. And that was my first time noticing Carlos. After this work luncheon, I don't recall speaking to Carlos on that first encounter or on the first day that I noticed him staring at me, but we somehow became acquainted at our place of work. He would come up to my cubicle, come up to my desk, or we would see each other in the canteen, and we somehow started talking and getting acquainted with each other. Carlos is a middle-aged man, and I did not have any issue with that. In fact, in my rebellious state of mind, I actually thought it was very intriguing at the time to potentially be involved with someone older. So we're getting acquainted at work, and we start going out, not as a dating couple, but with other members at work. And that mostly consisted of other men around his age. So it would be myself, Carlos, and Carlos's other consulting friends. I should put a disclaimer there that Carlos was from New York, and he did not work at this company full time. He was a financial consultant. So he had a home and a life outside of Virginia. He actually lived in Pennsylvania. He's from New York. He actually lived in Pennsylvania, but his assignment was at my brokerage firm in Virginia. I was working at this brokerage firm full-time as a full-time employee. That's important for the story later. So when we would hang out, we would mostly hang out with other, on a friendly basis with other members from work. I remember us beginning to talk about work things at first, and then we started to slowly talk about more personal things. Now, at this time, I have no idea about his personal life. I don't know who he lives with back in Pennsylvania, and we were just speaking on a friendly basis. I remember emailing him my phone number. I'm starting to really be intrigued and attracted to this person. And after we exchanged phone numbers, we start texting. Texting was becoming a thing at the time. And we started texting each other back and forth. I can't tell you the moment where it moved from being friendly colleagues to flirty colleagues to more flirtatious and suggestive conversation. But at some point, it did become more flirtation and suggestive. And at some point, the group meetings that we would have together started to reduce and reduce and reduce until it was just the two of us meeting for lunch or just the two of us meeting for dinner. This happened over a course of, I'd say, less than a year. So over the course of a year, we slowly transformed from work colleagues to, I don't even want to say dating. I would just say hanging out, just the two of us. This is around the point where I learned that Carlos was married. Now, before you crucify me, oh, you should have left, oh, you should have da-da-da-da-da. Yes, you are exactly right. At that point, when I learned that he was married, his wife lived in their home in Pennsylvania, but she was studying in the medical field. I won't say exactly what she was studying, but she was studying in the medical field in Antigua for her medical degree. Now, this is a middle-aged woman just like him. This is not a young woman studying in her 20s or 30s. She was an adult. They had 2 boys, twin boys, that were a year younger than me. And, but she was not in their marital home. This was the story that was told to me, okay? Do people normally do that? Like, do doctors study in the Caribbean, or do they study in Caribbean islands for their medical degree? I don't know. She's the first and only person I've learned. Well, maybe they do. Maybe there's a specific school there that she was studying, or maybe she was doing a special project. I have no idea, but that's what the story was. And on top of that, the story was, I'm married, but we're separated. Looking back and even telling this story now, it just sounds so, it sounds so silly. Like, Nico, you should have known that this was his way of grooming you. This was his way of trying to rope you in. I know that now, but of course, when you're 20, whatever years old, you don't want to listen to anyone. You want to listen to the feelings that are happening in your own head. You want to believe that, oh, okay, well, he's married, but he's separated, and they're going to get a divorce, and then we're going to live happily ever after. That's what we tell ourselves, right? So this is the status with Carlos. I'm 22, he's 46, married but separated, living in Pennsylvania, working in Virginia, twin boys who are 1 year younger than me, actually 11 months younger than me, not even a year, and a wife who is in Antigua studying to be some type of medical doctor. Carlos and I started officially, I don't even want to say dating, because I see dating as properly getting acquainted, both of you intentionally going out with a purpose. You're single, I'm single. Let's go out, hang out a few times and see where this goes. I wouldn't say that that was the case with Carlos. We got involved somehow, and it was intentional on both our parts. I was an adult, he was an adult. Although I was in my early 20s and he was in his mid to late 40s, we were both adults. Was he trying to weasel himself in? Was he grooming me? Was he trying to blah, blah, blah? Possibly, but I went along with it. So that's what happened. We're still working together in the same building, not in the same department, but it got to a point where I started going over his rented apartment, which was down the street from where we worked. I started driving to his apartment after school on days where I didn't have school, or on weekends, because he was living there by himself. So I found myself driving there, and at first just hanging out, chilling, having dinners. He would cook for me. He wasn't a very good cook, actually, but he would cook dinner for me, and I would go home after our hangout. Nothing romantic happening yet. One day I did drive out to his rented apartment, or his work apartment, his corporate apartment, and another consultant who was working in our building saw me get out of the car and walk towards Carlos's apartment. And I will never forget the look on his face. He was smiling. He was looking at me and he was smiling like, "Where are you going? Are you going to see Carlos?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I just saw him like cheekily grinning at me. And I was thinking like, okay, oh shit. Like, it's starting to get out in the workplace that I am visiting Carlos on my own behalf. At least it's starting to get out within the few friends that Carlos has. at our job, which was bad. Which was bad enough. Carlos and I were flirty friends, nothing romantic happening in the beginning until he got into a big argument with his wife. Because of course, there's a big blow up, there's a big argument, right? So for some reason, he got into this big blow up argument with his wife. Let's call her Shannon. So he got into a big blow up argument with Shannon, and he's down in Virginia by himself. He gets into this big blow up argument with Shannon, and the separation becomes Nico. Shannon says she wants a divorce. Okay, so how convenient for me to be in the picture for him to, quote, be separated, unquote, from his wife, Shannon, and for them to get into this big argument and confide in me that his wife has now asked for a divorce. And I believed him. I believed everything he said. I do think that really happened. I don't think Carlos was being manipulative. Well, let me take that back. I don't think Carlos was necessarily lying about everything that he was telling me. I think he was partly telling me what I wanted to hear as a young, pretty woman who he was attracted to and interested in, and maybe some of it was true. I think there were troubles in paradise on his end as well, and things weren't 100% cool, but he was still married. That's the whole point. After he gets into this blow up with Shannon, he confides in me, and he actually starts crying. I remember being at his apartment, and right after this phone blow up, he starts crying, and it was at that point forward where he and I started to romantically, like physically, get involved. By the way, if we are keeping track of different racial backgrounds and ethnicities, obviously I'm a Black woman. As I stated before, Carlos is a Latino man, or I should say Hispanic man, because his mother's background is Puerto Rican and his father's background is actually Spain. So we'll say a Hispanic man. And Shannon is a Black woman from an island in the Caribbean, just to give that picture there. I'm at his apartment one day and we decide to get physical. And our first physical moment together was not intercourse, it was him tasting my peach. I let him do it. He did it. That's where it started, but that's not where it finished. We did eventually become intimate, full-on intercourse, and that's how it was for a long time. We, at this point, started to keep our relationship a little bit more inconspicuous as far as work goes. So now that we weren't just flirty friends, flirty coworkers, just hanging out, and we were actually having sex and starting to develop this relationship, that's where we stopped being so obvious about it in terms of the workplace. I would go to his apartment at night at a time where I didn't think I would be seen by any of the other possible coworkers that lived in the apartment complex. And we pretty much kept things separated outside of our alone time at his apartment. And at this point, he also started coming to my apartment. I lived in the downtown area close to my university, and I was living by myself. And I would invite him to my apartment as well. Our relationship is starting to develop. He's still married. It's still wrong. And I didn't care at that point. I'm 22 years old. I'm in love with this older man. I think it's fun. I think it's sexy. I'm being super rebellious. I'm being super bold about it. I'm bragging about it to my friends, thinking I had some prize to be won. And my friends, were okay. They probably thought it was wrong, but they didn't tell me at the time. And I would tell my friends that, oh, he's married, but he's getting a divorce, he's separated. And my young friends at the time, most of them would say, okay, fine, or okay. There was no hard rebuke towards this relationship from anyone on my end. Should there have been? Yeah. Someone could have came up to me and said, hi, Nico, I don't think this is a good idea. I think you're opening up a can of worms. I think you should wait until he actually gets the divorce finalized. That's what I would tell my 22-year-old self back then. Actually, I would tell my 22-year-old self, don't even get involved with this fool because it's not worth wasting your life. Periodically, Carlos goes back to his home in Pennsylvania. So he's working full-time in Virginia, let's say for about 6 months at a time, and then he'll go back to his residence for a few weeks, and then he would come back on assignment when his new contract starts. He goes back to Pennsylvania during one of these breaks, and Shannon is home, at their home in Pennsylvania. Somehow, it gets out to Shannon. He tells Shannon that he is seeing someone in Virginia. He tells her that. At this point, we'd been seeing each other maybe around a year since we were first introduced, and him revealing to his wife that he has been seeing someone on the side, or he has a girlfriend, or however you want to call it. And his wife completely changes course. Now she wants to work it out. Now she wants to fix everything. She wants to stop the divorce. She wants to repair their marriage. Now looking back at the situation, I completely sympathize with her. I think any reaction that she had would have been correct, but that's how she reacted. And Carlos, at this point, was torn between working it out with his wife and continuing with me. Did I expect Carlos, as a 46-year-old man who had built this house, built this life, had 2 grown children, had a wife, had 20-something years of marriage, a career, to drop all of that and be with me? Hell yeah, I did. I expected it, and I wasn't going to take anything less than that. Was I stupid for expecting that? Yeah, sure. That's fine. You can go off in the comments and let me know how stupid I was back then. That's completely fine. But yeah, that's honest to God not only what I wanted, what I felt like I was entitled to, because I was a 22, 23-year-old bonehead. That's how I felt, and I wasn't going to accept anything less than that. During the next year or so was a period of Carlos and I continuing to be involved with each other, plus Carlos deciding whether or not he wanted to work it out with Shannon. So Carlos is now still seeing me and still giving his wife hope that they're going to make it. Now, Shannon is aware that a woman exists in Virginia. She must have stopped studying in Antigua or wherever she was, her medical school, her medical course, and completely moved back to Pennsylvania to work it out with her husband. And when Carlos returned back to Virginia to continue his assignment at the brokerage firm that we were working at, Shannon would start following him. There came a point where Carlos was assigned to be in that apartment, but previously his wife would not come with him. The consultants that worked there, most of them were married, either married women or married men, but their spouses would not be with them because their spouses more than likely also had another job wherever they were from, and the consultants would be renting their apartments for whatever length of time, and then they'll go back to their families. And that was more or less the case with Carlos because his wife was studying or going to medical school or whatever. So now Carlos is coming to his assignment in Virginia either with his wife, or he would come to his apartment in Virginia and his wife would follow him. At first, he would come on assignment as usual, and Shannon would take a train or fly to Virginia from Pennsylvania and pop up at his apartment. We can see where this is going, y'all. Shannon became obsessed with this relationship that her husband was having with this 20-some-odd-year-old young woman in another state. As well, she should have been. I would have gone crazy myself. Somehow Shannon got my phone number, and she would start calling me. I guess she went through Carlos's phone or emails or whatever. It doesn't matter. She starts calling me, and I only remember her calling me early in the morning. She would call me like at 5 a.m. I don't remember why, but this was her peak time of calling my phone. And she was herself Caribbean, so I remember this Caribbean accent, and she spoke really fast, and she asked to speak to Nico. So yes, this is Nico. And she basically confronted me about visiting her husband, that if she finds any more evidence of me being in her husband's apartment, there's going to be hell to pay. She's going to wreak havoc on my life. And I remember not being affected by it at all. I was really, I was just like, okay. And I responded to her, well, he wants me there. He wants me in a calm way. This was it was a confrontation, but it wasn't a yelling match back and forth. We were speaking like two calm women somehow. And she told me not to see her husband anymore. And I said, I'm still going to see him. And she said, well, if you do, I'm going to wreak havoc on your life. There are going to be consequences. And I brushed it off. I really did. I was not affected. I wasn't afraid. I didn't feel threatened. And I continued to see Carlos. Was I stupid? Yeah. You can let me know how stupid I was in the comments. Go ahead. But that's what I did. I can't change it. What's done is done. She didn't call me every day. She called me once, and then she did call me again at some point, but I think it was a little later. It was months later down the road. So she gave me the first phone call. I took it. I didn't take it seriously. And I fell back for a while because I knew his wife was in the apartment. So I didn't go. And I communicated with him via email. I was still communicating with him via email. I don't think I was still texting him at this point in time. So when she was at his apartment, we would see each other at work, but we're keeping it on the down low at work now, so we can't be that obvious at work. And we would email each other. I even think it was on the work email. Y'all, it was I was unhinged back in the day. And he would basically tell me, oh, she's here. I can't do anything about it. She's this, she's that. He was low-key bashing his wife while she was there because he made her out to be this controlling, obsessed, mean, enraged woman. Again, her complete right to be. I think any woman would, go cuckoo over this situation, if not outright leave her husband. But remember, this is 20-something years worth of marriage. This is 2 kids. And even though I think she really did consider leaving him at some point, it flipped as soon as she found out that he had moved on before she was ready for him to move on. He had even told me that she was cheating on him in the Caribbean while she was at this medical school. Is that true? I have no idea. I learned to understand that Carlos was not always a truthful person in what he told me. He'd tell me things that would put makeup on the situation and make it more acceptable for him to continue seeing me. Anyway, back to the story. I myself started to become obsessed with the situation. I was in love with Carlos by this point. Carlos was in love with me, infatuated with me. Pick one, I don't know. But he had feelings for me as well. And I remember before going to work, waking up at 5, 4, 5 in the morning, getting dressed, getting in my car, driving. This is maybe a 20 or so, 25-minute drive from my downtown apartment to his corporate apartment, and waiting with my car outside the front gate to the entrance because you needed either a code this is a closed community, so you either needed a code to get into the apartment complex or someone had to let you in. So you would call, beep apartment number 5, and then whoever's in apartment number 5 would press the button to open the front gate for the car to get through. So I couldn't get in unless Carlos somehow let me in. I remember with my crazy ass getting up, putting a full face of makeup on, getting dressed, getting in my car, driving to his apartment complex, knowing his wife was there, and waiting for either someone to leave or for that gate to open and me following the car, or a car came home and opened the gate and I would follow that car into the apartment complex. And I should have been arrested because clearly unwelcome visitors were not allowed in. But that's what I did. And I would park outside of Carlos's building. I could see Carlos's window from the ground floor, so it's easy to look at his apartment. The window wasn't open necessarily, the shades were down, but I can see his bedroom clearly from the ground floor, and I would just sit in the car and wait and just stare into his apartment. And I remember it being very early in the morning, 6 o'clock on the dot, I believe it was. I saw the light come on in his bedroom, and I would just sit there and I would see 2 silhouettes just going back and forth, and I was just seething and wondering what they were doing and obsessing over the situation. In the end, I didn't do anything. I didn't knock on the door, not at that point. And I would just go to work from there because work, again, was very close to this apartment complex. I was crazy as hell. I was crazy over this guy. I was obsessed with his wife. And these are the types of unhinged things I would do back in the 2000s. There was a point where Shannon left. She didn't stay there for the entire duration of his work assignment for that period. So she would stay, I don't know, a week, a couple of weeks, and she would go back to Pennsylvania or go back to their home that they shared, leaving Carlos there again. And Of course, we started seeing each other again because what else? I was hard-headed, I was stupid, and he was also having his cake and eating it too. So we continued to see each other when she was gone. And this is how we handled business for a big chunk of our involvement with each other. There was a turning point, though. I would go over his apartment. He would come to my apartment. We were sleeping with each other. We were having schmecks. And I was not seeing anyone else at the time. I would say during this period, how could he be my boyfriend? He's married. But we were still involved with each other. Was I seeing other men during this time? I wasn't, actually. I wasn't interested in seeing any other men. I would only say that there was a short time before we heavily got involved, before we started sleeping with each other, but after we met, I was involved with a man from Trinidad who lived in our city in Virginia for maybe 3 months or so. But that didn't work out because he was crazy. He would actually park his car outside of my downtown apartment and scream my name from the street. Yeah, these were crazy times, guys, crazy times. So he was doing the same thing that I myself later on did to Carlos and his wife. Anyway, my point is that I was not seeing any other man during our involvement together. There was a turning point. There has to be a turning point in this relationship. This is not a sustainable situation. The shit has to hit the fan at some point. And that point came on Valentine's Day, a year and a half after a year and a half in Valentine's Day. And I am going to have to continue this story in part 2, but I will give you a little bit of a preview. Valentine's Day, Carlos and I made plans to have this romantic dinner. I think I've won at this point because I'm. And Shannon is not in town, but Shannon shows up. And we're going to have to continue this conversation on part 2. Be sure to tune in to my next video. Thank you so much for listening to my crazy story so far about my involvement with Carlos, the married man who was 24 years my senior. And we will continue this conversation in my next video. I will give my final life lesson to my 22-year-old self after I complete this Carlos saga, because it is indeed a saga. This is just the first part of our relationship. You all have a great day. Let me know if you want to learn more about this twisted stitch. Let me know if you want me to do a video tutorial, and also share with me any similar experiences that you have. This is a judge-free zone. Please comment on your thoughts, opinions about this situation. I expect most of them to be negative because it was a negative situation. So there was not much positive from it, but I'm eager to hear your thoughts, and let me know about any of your crazy relationship experiences in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao.